identified. I hear that, but at the end of the day, you have to have some way of measuring things. So you, to the best of your ability and your team's ability, have to choose those behaviors which are linked to the organization's strategy. So again, everything has a plus and a minus. The next thing we talk about is the results approach. The use of objectives. Managers set goals that are used as standards to evaluate individual performances. We require SMART goals, which is the next slide that I added in. Different types of measurement can be used for goals or objectives, and goals usually set with managers and subordinates participation, which is a derivative of MBO, management by objective, which kind of brings the employee and the employer together so that they agree on what is to be measured. Look at the next slide. Basically, the SMART goals, let me just expand it a bit. This is kind of taken off of a website that I found. See if I can expand this. All right. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be attainable, realistic, very, very important. And of course, time bound. If you don't have time bound, then basically what you're going to have is complete anarchy. Imagine if, and please, be honest with me, imagine if I gave you an assignment with no deadline, or give it in whenever you want. I would like to say present company excluded, but I would say in most cases you would probably wait till the end of the semester to hand it in. Is that pretty much a given? Yes or no? Guys, I need to have you guys engaged in this. If I didn't give you a deadline for something, would you get it done before the end of the semester? What about the rest of you guys? Are you too scared to answer me? Ladies, anybody else brave enough to answer, or is Zoya the only brave one here? Okay, that's your personality. Anybody else would linger? Okay. Okay, so most of you, for most of you, the silence is deafening. I would imagine that you would agree with me. Silence is kind of admitting that I'm right. I'm going to take that. Anyway, the next one is best practices and goal setting. Just a couple of them employees and managers should discuss and set no more than 3 to 5 goals. You don't want to overwhelm people. Goals should be brief, meaningful, challenging. The time frame should be related to when they are expected to be accomplished, not some unrealistic time goal, etc., etc. You can look at the rest of them on table 8.9, which is slide 37. Results approach continued balanced scorecard looks at the financial aspects, the financial goals of the organization, the customer, internal or operations, and learning and growth. Again, for more in-depth analysis of what those entail, please look at page 348 here at the bottom. Okay. Then you have the productivity measurement evaluation system, PROMS. I was just actually looking at this. Let me just find that over here. It's, one second. Give me a moment. Okay, give me a minute over here. I'll get back to you on that. I'll post that for you in a second. Just give me a minute over here. Bars, I just went through. The book actually fell on the floor. I lost my place over here. All right, PROMS is on the bottom of 348. I'll just give you a little bit of a reading on this. The main goal of productivity measurement and evaluation systems, PROMS, is to motivate employees to improve team or company level productivity. It is a means of measuring and feeding back productivity information to employees. Team members try to map the relationship between specific outcomes and productivity. So there's an outcome and productivity and the relationship between effect and performance. So this stretches from page 348 to 349. There's an excellent explanation of this. So please go back to the book for page 348 to page 349. I'm actually going to notate it over here. Just write this in so I don't forget it. Okay, and you'll have this posted after the class is over, so you don't have to wait a long time. You know that I always post it pretty much an hour or two after class. All right, we move on to the next slide. We're making good time here. The results approach, continued evaluation of the results approach minimizes subjectivity, which is something everyone complains about anytime you grade something. Professor, but it's subjective. Well, it's only subjective if I don't have a rubric. But even if you have a rubric, a way of measuring, still subjective. Again, those are common complaints. There's always going to be some level of subjectivity. The point is we can't eliminate it. We have to minimize it. Links an individual's results with the organization's strategies and goals. Challenges can be both contaminated and deficient, as we mentioned before. Individuals may focus only on aspects of their performance that are measured, neglecting those that are not. Again, this is a fault in the way it was designed. Feedback may not help employees learn how they need to change their behavior to increase their performance. Again, and that will be, I would say, more of a deficiency in the one giving the evaluation, because a good evaluator should go beyond what's on the paper. You should pull the person over. Listen, let me just tell you something more. I could recall a specific event when you did X, Y, and Z. Well, let's look at your file. Remember, I wrote you up for this, and look how well you're doing right now. A good boss really knows every employee. And again, that's hard to do when you have so many employees reporting to you and you don't remember who's what. Quality approach, customer orientation, prevention approach to errors, and continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is something that should be in everybody's plans. You always want to be continually improving. You want to have a sustainable competitive advantage, which is something I talk about extensively in business policy. You don't want to be stagnant. You always want to be doing better and better and better. Move on to slide 42. Most existing systems measure performance in terms of quantity, not quality, which is not good. Quality is very, very important. I know Simon Sinek talks a lot about that in a lot of his lectures. Employees are held accountable for good or bad results to which they contribute, but do not completely control. And this is what I mentioned before. An employee can be held responsible for something that is not really their fault. And the reason it's not their fault is because they could be missing training, they can be missing encouragement, or there's something that you're not doing as a boss. So if it's a deficiency in you, how can you blame the employee? Companies do not share the financial rewards of success with employees according to how much they have contributed to them. Obviously, that is very demotivating, and rewards are not connected to business results, which of course shows a poor design. Continuation, the quality approach, process flow analysis identifies each action and decision necessary to complete work, such as waiting on a customer or assembling television sets. Cause and effect diagrams is another thing. Again, let me read this before I get to that. Process flow analysis is useful for identifying redundancy in processes. So if you have 10 steps and steps 5 and 6 are redundant, you can cut one out. Increases manufacturing or service time. So extra steps slow down the process and, of course, adds more money. In cause and effect diagrams, events or causes that result in undesirable outcomes are identified. Employees try to identify all possible causes of a problem. And again, we're looking for root cause analysis. We don't want to treat the symptoms, we want to treat the underlying causes. The feasibility of the causes is not evaluated, and as a result, cause and effect diagrams produce a large list of possible causes. A Pareto chart highlights the most important cause of a problem. In a Pareto chart, causes are listed in decreasing order of importance. So it focuses on that. Then you have control charts involve collecting. Let me just move this up a little bit over here. Control charts involve collecting data at multiple points in time. By collecting data at different times, employees can identify what factors contribute to an outcome. It's kind of like what we're doing now with the COVID virus. We want to see over time what happens. We're collecting data every single day to build that curve. Histograms, oh wow, I feel like I'm back in 9th grade math. Display distribution of large sets of data. Data are grouped into smaller numbers of categories or classes. Histograms are used for understanding the amount of variance between an outcome and the expected value or average outcome. So it's very important for that. Again, for those of you statistic gurus or math nerds, that's something that you'd be doing in a lot of your statistics classes. Okay, the quality approach. Evaluation of the quality approach adopts a systems-oriented focus. It's looking at the whole system, not just looking at you. Advocates evaluation of personal traits such as cooperation, which are difficult to relate to job performance unless the company has been structured into work teams. And again, cooperation is an indication of a systems approach, because if there's lack of cooperation here, it's going to ruin the system over here. Kudos to people who do that. Choosing a source of performance information. Managers most frequently use source of performance information motivated to make accurate ratings, obviously, to improve the performance of their employees. Feedback from supervisors is strongly related to performance and to employee perceptions of the accuracy of the appraisal, which is important. If we don't have that feedback, we can't really know if it's accurate. Peers have expert knowledge of job requirements, often have the most opportunity to observe the employee, often in the best position to praise and recognize each other's performances on a daily basis in a day-to-day activity. Peers are not expected to provide feedback. Obviously, that'll be kind of hard. 47, direct reports have best opportunity to evaluate how managers treat employees. Put the manager in his hot seat. Just like I could evaluate you, you're evaluating me. And that's kind of what happens in academia to an extent. I evaluate you folks by giving you grades, and you evaluate me at the end of the year with a rating. Have the best opportunity to evaluate how manager treats employees. Upward feedback, which refers to appraisals that involve collecting subordinates' evaluation of a manager's behaviors or skills. I just heard somebody click in. Any questions? Okay. Gives subordinates power over managers. In other words, it's kind of like a checks and balances and might lead to emphasis of employee satisfaction and production. And if you're a smart owner, you're going to link that boss's or that manager's bonus or raise or any form of elevation with the organization to those feedback mechanisms, such as the direct reports. This way, you know that if you abuse your employees, it's going to hurt you at the end. Nothing wrong with good old-fashioned checks and balances. Self, not so good, because people don't like to evaluate themselves. There's always a bias. Anything, it's like if you write an essay for school, you should have somebody. Obviously, you're going to proofread it, but you're going to have 2 or 3 people or 1 or 2 people proofread it. Why? Because you're biased. You're not going to find the deficiencies in something that you did, because you're not going to be comfortable in rating yourself lower. Not often used as a sole source of performance information, but could still be valuable. Tendency toward inflated assessments. It's kind of like marking your own tests. Imagine if I told you to grade your own papers. Obviously, give yourself all A's. Not that you don't deserve it, but you know what I'm talking about. Oh, okay. Well, it's a hard thing to expect. Yes, very, very consistent and true. I would not want one of you guys marking the test. I don't think it's fair. It's my job. That's what I get paid the small bucks. I mean, the big bucks to do. Okay, I'm just kidding. Customers. The customer is often the only person present to observe the employee's performance and thus is the best source of performance information. Okay, where that is possible, obviously. Service companies use customer evaluations when an employee's job requires direct service to the customer or linking the customer to other services within the company. When the company is interested in gathering information to determine what products and services the customer wants, it's very, very important because it leads directly into changes, staffing changes or process changes. We're actually going to finish everything tonight. We might as well. 360-degree appraisal. I'm going to stick a video in. I think I did this already last week, so I may use the same one. I used it actually for a different course. So if you're involved in my organizational theory course, you may see a repeat. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Multiple raters, bosses, peers, subordinates, customers provide input into manager's evaluation, minimizes bias. The technique consists of having these multiple raters, so it's kind of a very, very good overall way of rating someone. Okay, social performance management, social media, microblogs similar to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Yammer that allows employees to quickly exchange info, talk to each other, provide coaching and resolve feedback and recognition in the form of electronic badges. Okay, this is really high tech. Technology influences performance management through web-based systems, social media, known as social performance management, electronic tracking software that analyzes employee computers and creates a profile, and wearables. A wearable, I looked it up, is actually this smartwatch is a wearable. So I guess in the context of this, you would have some sort of device that tracks you. A little bit uncomfortable. I feel like it's a bit too much in my personal space, but who has privacy anymore anyway? Privacy concerns. Electronic monitoring systems threaten employees' rights and dignity to work without being monitored. Needless surveilling results in less productivity and motivation, demoralizing employees, and creates stress, which is something we'd like to minimize as much as possible. Unconscious bias is a judgment outside of our consciousness that affects decisions based on background, culture, and personal experience. Appraisal politics refers to evaluate as purposefully distorting a rating to achieve personal or company goals. You're stacking the decks. You're basically leading yourself so that you make your numbers look good, padding your numbers, but it's not true. A couple other typical errors similar to me. We're in slide number 54, table 8.12. We'll do a couple of them similar to me. Individuals who are similar to us in race, gender, background, interests, beliefs, and the like receive higher ratings than those who are not. Why? Because you're comfortable around those people. It may not even be that you're a racist. Let's not assume the worst. Let's not assume that you're a skinhead because you're doing this. Let's just assume that you're a normal person who feels more comfortable with their own type of people that they've been brought up with. And that's not fair, obviously. The results are going to be skewed, but it's something that is quite understandable. And again, it doesn't mean that you're a racist. It's just That's the way humans are. Strictness. Rater gives low ratings to all employees regardless of their performance. That's like the professor that comes in. No one's getting an A. I'm not going to ask you if you've had those kind of professors. It's not a confessional here. But there are people like that, and that's terrible. Halo effect. Raters give employees high ratings in all aspects of performance because of an overall positive impression of the employee. In other words, they just have that good vibe. So, yeah, everything is good. And obviously, that's not good either. We move on to slide 55. Use of technology. There's a rate error training, attempts to make managers aware of rating errors and help them develop strategies. Rate accuracy training, also called frame of reference training, attempts to emphasize the multidimensional nature of performance to get raters to understand and use the same idea of high, medium, and low when making evaluations. So you're training people how to evaluate, and calibration meetings provide a way to discuss employees' performance with the goal of ensuring that similar standards are applied to their evaluations. So again, you're always making sure that there's some sort of consistency with what you're trying to accomplish and the tool that you're using. Performance feedback. Feedback should be given frequently, not once a year. Create the right context for discussion. Ask the employee to rate his or her performance before the session. Have ongoing collaborative performance conversations. Recognize effective performance through praise. Focus on solving problems. Focus feedback on behavior or results, not on the purpose. Minimize criticism. Criticism is never well received. It's easier to break than to build. Use your criticism in a constructive way. Agree to specific goals and set a date to review progress. What can managers do to diagnose performance problems and manage employees' performance? Diagnosing the causes of poor performance. Consider, and this is something that I mentioned in the beginning, and honestly, I think this is probably the most important part of this whole presentation. Diagnosing the causes of poor performance. Consider whether the poor performance is detrimental to the business. Maybe it's not such a big deal. Determine the cause and meet with the employee. Let them know what's going on. Actions for managers' employees' performance. Take into account employees' ability, motivation, or both. Solid performance, high ability and motivation. Misdirected effort, motivated but lack of ability. Underutilizes, people that could do better but lack motivation, and deadwood, low ability and motivation, and then you need to get rid of them. Figure 8.8 goes through this. You could look at it on your own. We move on to slide 60, our last slide for tonight. Developing and implementing a system that follows legal guidelines. Be careful with discrimination, which is based on age, race, gender, or national origin. And unjust dismissal. Watch for that. Dismissal for reasons other than those employer claims. In other words, you claim the person didn't come to work on time. You have no proof for that, and you're really doing it because you have some sort of other bias against their race, national origin, or some other reason. Again, thank you very much for joining. That completes Chapter 8 on performance appraisals. Have a very good evening.